Cool. So here's technical Brian. Cool.
Right.
So welcome everybody, and we're going to open space so that we don't forget. But I really want to just invite you all into this session today, which we've just really realized goes very well with our new program, Abundant Stability, which is part of the ARTA, the Earth pillar of this new pillars. Yeah, like lifetime project that we're going to be unveiling incrementally. And so I'm really grateful to Francesco and the Oathies at the Oath Hub to be here in Roslin in Scotland. And yeah, we've got a little contingency of Brian, me, Kate, and Francesco all here in the same sort of area. Okay, so that's nice. And there's some interesting work taking place here right now. And yeah, this this session came about. Francesco and I sometimes have debriefs. Madalena and I talk a lot, and I don't know, there are a few things that have snapped for me recently, which will probably come into the discussion at some point. They were discussed yesterday in our workshop. But there's a lot of inversion right now with value systems, which are really holding people back from their highest spiritual path. And I know that a lot of people are kind of dismayed at certain things, and I don't want to go into duality with things, but what we're really realizing is that a lot of people are prolonging their own suffering because they don't know the true principles of things. And I know that a lot of real spiritual people have had some of the biggest miracles in their lives through the journey of surrender, the journey of not having much. Hey, and just basically, people are again cutting themselves short because of the lack of generosity, the lack of surrender to the bigger picture, and indeed the lack of things like selfless service. So we thought that we would actually share some abundance today. And I'm really, really grateful to have Madeline and Francesco on today, sharing their stories from lots of years of volunteering, selfless service, working in ashram settings, working in community settings. And I also celebrate because Dharma stars are wanting to come more and more into collaborative processes because for a while it's been me mostly talking, and the way the astrology is that in these coming weeks and months it's really about more horizontal networking, more community collaboration. And so Dharma stars want nothing more than to have more people sharing wisdom on our platform. But actually, what we sadly confront quite a lot is that people often don't have the value system right. And so if we were talking about this in Buddhist terms, it would be called wrong view. And therefore, we get this kind of clunkiness. And then we realize like this isn't working because people, again, in this inversion with their value systems. And the one thing I want to say about that is that people are just naive. There's not like some bad subplot here. It's just that a lot of the higher spiritual principles that really help people to emancipate from suffering have got kind of lost. And so, one of the eternal themes that we will see across many, many amazing lineages where people become highly realized is this concept of selfless service or surrender. And in any initiatory process, in any rite of passage, often there's this point where spirit or the guru or the wisdom keeper pushes us to the point where we think we cannot take any more. And if you even listen to Richard Rudd, who has brought through the Gene Keys system, he also talks about this. There's that point where you're lying on the floor screaming, and that's usually when grace enters. And so we are going to become more and more unapologetic in the coming years and coming times about really saying, let's all actually really strive to the higher path and let's honor the ways and the toolkits of the ancients that are getting lost because there's a lot of going round and round and round and a lot of excuses being made. And for us as a little baby school, we see certain interesting behaviors and interesting shirkings of responsibility or real surrender to service. And I know Francesco sees similar when he is in places like Salisbury Centre or assisting at festivals. And I know that Khentrul Rinpoche, who's our guru in many ways, of the Dzogchen school and the Jonang lineage, he's a Kalachakra master. His organization, because they have lots of people coming, they see it all the time too. So it's not like it's one person is experiencing this. There are these hallmarks in the human condition. And today is about really starting to weave and to discuss how we can truly enter into the magic, the miracle when we come into selfless service. So I really look forward to hearing Madalena and Francesco's wisdom on the topic. And yeah, and also from all of you today. And Olivia, it's lovely to see you again. It's been a while. Wow. Yay. So, so what we'll do is we'll just open space, and then I'd love to hear from each of you, and then we'll naturally and organically come into some sort of weaving on this topic. And so, really, I just really want to connect to cosmic and natural law today, and just ask us all to remember that we are allowed to be connected and to be held in the abundance of the universe. And I also call upon our connection to the celestial bodies so that we have a deeper understanding of our own karma, of cause and effect, and of the necessity of understanding that responsibility is just as important as self care when we look at the sacred codings of astrology. I also want to call upon the essence of the grandmothers, the net of light, the crystalline mycelium grid of consciousness, which weaves us into a fabric of connectivity as well, because I think that people come into the contemplation with existence from a deficit and from lack. And so I really call upon divine grace to be with us today as we weave with these themes, giving gratitude to all the teachers in all their forms who have also helped for us to imbibe and hopefully embody these codes and principles. And yeah, just calling upon our higher selves, monad selves, and avatar selves to be with us in the ever present now. So that anything that gets shared today also can ripple into the collective. It feels like something strong actually wants to happen through this session. And we also dedicate this into the field as part of our contribution to the Arta Abundant Stability Path to help people to move beyond these inverted value systems and principles that are slowing people's spiritual progression down. Gracias, gracias, gracias. This space is now open. Cool. So, we. So, it'd be just lovely to hear a little bit from each of you. And if you're not presenting today, just if you have any questions around this topic, I'll write them down and we can make sure that we try to cover it today. Madalena, you were on the call first. Would it be okay for you to share? And then you can nominate someone.
Hi everyone. So I know some of you, and for also for the people that don't know me, I was born in Portugal, and yeah, just to contextualize a bit what how I'm going to speak today, and I was just recalling right now how something that was very important when I was growing up. I was 10 years in the Scouts. And the reason that I'm mentioning it is because we would all get together for all those years. We used to do a lot of activities, and we would like have different teams that would be responsible for different parts of each activity. And we all knew if we didn't do our part, we couldn't go to these places. Like we couldn't go and walk like all these different paths and all these mountains and everywhere we wanted to go. So I think all that period really helped me to realize and understand that if I didn't do, then the group would have reflections and consequences. And that was a big part. And then, of course, growing up and everything. But for many years, I've been like volunteering in small projects. I've volunteered in permaculture and biological agriculture farms. I volunteer in ashrams, and I've dedicated many, especially at the beginning of each project or each thing that I've been part of. It was most of the things that happened was through me giving my time and offering my help that then helped things to expand and to move from one place to another and grow in life. So I'm now also part of Dharma Stars, and I do a lot of like admin and backstage office, and I'm also a practitioner in the school. So yeah, I'm happy to be here with all of you and Padma and Francesco as well today. So yeah, thank you. And I pass on to Francesco because he was next.
Great. Oh, good to see you all. Thank you, Padma. Thank you, Madalena. Yeah, nice to see as well, like Olivia here from some nice weaving in Edinburgh. And so, yeah, I'm Francesco. I live in Rosyin right now, originally from Italy. And I've been in Scotland for about 15, 16 years. And when I think about that, it's crazy to think about how much has passed since the first time I arrived. And I come from a family which is relatively conventional. My family is retired. I've been done kind of general job like postman and office administrator. And then I started university in Italy, chemistry. And then there was something calling me to kind of telling me that I had to leave Italy. And that was when I was about 18, 19. And I ended up taking the step, ended up in London. And from there, I kind of started following a journey of unfolding and evolution of my own self, which led me to the UK first, and then to spend about 2, 3 years around Asia, Australia, working in ecological projects. And the first actually project that changed my life was called Sadhana Forest, which means the forest of service. And looking back at that, I can really see how this project influenced a lot of the imprint that I'm following and I've been following since then. And I can share a bit more later, I guess. But my whole life has been around looking for connection, and I look through this sort of connection to myself and community through having studied ecology, ecological science, and then I've been working NGOs in charity, which do organic food certifications and stuff like that. But then also being a very kind of involved activist into the activist world. So really doing direct actions in front of banks and doing a lot of things which were social activity, but lacked a bit of spiritual connection. And then I guess I ended up in a burnout, and from there, I ended up exploring completely the opposite, where I ended up working with ceremony, with ayahuasca, traveling the world, and kind of connecting with indigenous tradition, where with different medicines. And after a few years, that kind of world collapsed as well. And the lesson for me that I've been trying to integrate over the past 8, 9 years of my life has been bringing together the activisty world, which is kind of is very powerful in terms of community building and working with like what's present in the communities, but also how do you find the spiritual nourishment that a lot of people look quite in an individual base through ceremony and spiritual healing. And I guess everything's that brought me back now to work into physical hubs, which are kind of grounded community spaces. One is in Rosling, where I am right now. One is a Salisbury Center, is a spiritual center in the middle of Edinburgh. And yeah, I've been involved in all their kind of grounded community projects throughout. And I guess what I'm bringing now together, it's the role of ceremony, but through fire. So I work a lot with sacred fire, which is a big teacher in many kind of context to bridge the kind of activisty and the spiritual for me. I'm happy to share a bit more later. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Feeling yeah, lovely. I'm happy to pass it for now to somebody else. I think I'll pass it to Kate since she was here after.
Hello. Um, for those of you that I have not met. I am Kate. I'm just out here in the garden at Oath, so can I can see where I think Padma is and Francesco just behind that to give you a spatial sense. And yeah, so I am from California and I've been in Scotland since June, living here in Francesco's wonderful hub, Oath. I've come originally to study Celtic spirituality, but since kind of coming to Oath, the journey has gone so far beyond that in so many wonderful ways, from learning about the sacred fire and space holding, to now connecting with Padma, which has just opened up all these different realms that I was not familiar with, and what it means. I've been thinking a lot about, and we were talking about yesterday, the difference between like kind of the self-cherishing pseudo spirituality energy, um, and like the real stuff. And so I think part of what I'm really interested in this context is, yeah, how sacred service plays into that. I've been of service in my life in many different ways, but never before with this type of context around it. Not in a conscious way. Um, yeah, so and then I think too, something that I think about a lot is how, and maybe this is different than this session, but like how personal work that one is doing can have a ripple effect to the collective. Um, and so I think that in tandem with like the literal service acts are something that yeah, kind of been grappling with recently. So very grateful to be a part of this session. And I will pass it on to Brian.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm also in Scotland. I'm actually sitting looking at Dunblane Cathedral. I managed to get here just about in time. I retired five years ago, and I'm on quite a journey at the moment, trying to work out what my role is going to be for the rest of my life. I have a strong desire to help, and it's at the moment working how to channel that. I volunteer in some local woods, a collection of pine trees. I volunteer there every week. I've been a school governor for a while. I do little acts of kindness whenever I can, and I've noticed that whatever I give, the universe gives back to me manifold. But I'm on a journey, and I'm on a mentoring program with Padma, which is really enlightening and hard work for somebody who's new to all this. So I'm grateful to be here and to hear words of wisdom from all of you. I think that's all I've got left for the moment. So if I pass this on to, if I can read this, Kristen, I think. I can see that name there. Hi.
Hi, Brian. Good to see you again. Good to see everyone. Yeah, really good. I don't think I've met Olivia and Kate yet. Yeah, so I'm also a student. I've been a student with Dharma Stars for quite a few years now, I think. 3 years maybe. And yeah, service, selfless service, something I became conscious of during my Kundalini yoga teachers training. But actually, just now talking about it, my father's journey with cancer, I think actually there I stepped into selfless service, really truly putting my needs not beyond my needs after his needs, and my mother, assisting with his care, and kind of really understanding when the call, answering the call, I think in a moment where someone's needs are greater than your own, and one is in a position to energetically to make such a difference to the other being and their well-being. It's actually so rewarding. But of course, there's a journey to be made in such. That's just coming to mind, which I didn't have any idea about. Would obviously come to mind. And yeah, I'm a mother, and I had two early teen girls here yesterday, and for sleepover and so on. There was definitely quite a bit of service going on. But yeah, this is a really, really important conversation, and I'm really grateful this is happening. Yeah, thank you so much, and I pass on to Olivia.
You. Yes, so I received the Oath newsletter and I saw this and I thought, wow, this topic is very alive in me, and also really lovely to weave with Francesco in a way and hear more about your journey. So I'm feeling gratitude, and also close by because I'm near Blackford Hill. I almost took up the offer to go to Rosyin that I saw was written, but I'm just chilling in my home space. So yeah, thanks for coming to me. Yes, I feel I don't have any explicit questions coming out of me now. It may come. And I guess, yeah, a lot of work that I do is not well paid financially. And it just strongly resonates with me what I think I understand you're bringing today. And I would love to continue leaning into that and into that trust. And so I'm keen to, yeah, gain some insight into the wisdom of your journeying and how that's felt and how you've navigated it, as I feel I am also with my work. And yeah, I resonate strongly with something that you were talking about, Francesco, about like or as I understood, like sort of activism or social change and spirituality. And that's a big part of my life. So big part of my life is singing and vibrational sharing. And that's an overlap Francesco and I have with Georgian singing. And the other part of my work is very much around social justice and supporting people to better understand ableism, disability, and racism, and as well as that, navigating conflict. And I think, navigating conflict is a huge topic, and it's something I'm journeying with around, yeah, how do we foster connection and community and love and move through difficulty. And that's very broad, actually. So when people call me in to be a mediator, and there might be a certain mode of doing that work, I really believe there's so many modes for doing healing work. And yeah, just journeying with how I weave different parts of my life together around singing and resonance and conflict resolution and things like that. So who knows, something might drop out today with us. Thank you. I think that's everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. Thank you, everybody. And I guess I'll just maybe open up the discussion a little bit. And I think maybe we start at kind of children's rate of pay for age or circumstances, because I think that was something that we were, Madalena, Francesco, and I were all looking at in different threads. Is and this is something that's definitely been part of my journey for many years, but also where I've seen a lot of miracles from sometimes after years of doing funding bids and from years before that, always operating things like squats and free parties and things. So there wasn't any pay for anything. And then coming into situations where we were fundraising and just fundraising for things like Médecins Sans Frontières or refugee networks. And then starting to do funded projects, then I started to realize that the dependency on funding was actually a really big problem and started to just do things for free and just see how we could just operate. But it seems that there are these different categories, like the people who seem to be able to alchemize, but end up on the kind of £1.25 an hour, which was often my rate back not that long ago when I calculated all the hours. And then these people who want to, have these massive salaries. Um, and it's a very tricky time at the moment. And we see a lot of this playing out in pseudo spirituality with these people saying, oh, you have to be this master abundance manifester and charge £440 an hour for some strange thing. And I think that what I really want to speak to and see and hear from Francesco and Madalena about is that sometimes there's this projection that's coming from some of those scenes that somehow you're stupid to be somehow one of these people who is thinking about the fact that, okay, somehow I will just operate with this kind of children's income, and somehow we seem to get a lot of rewards. And one thing I can say is that, I've trained with a lot of really amazing masters through the years, and what seems to be very interesting is that you'll have these big bucks people and then I have had a very good education and I haven't paid for university. I didn't pay for much of it and I got scholarships. And then I've studied people like Khenpo Rinpoche, our Lama teacher. He doesn't charge very much for these amazing empowerments. And it seems like there are different economies that seem to ripple down if you are one of these £1.25 people an hour. And I know that Francesco has to make oath work, and I it's mostly my income that makes Dharma Stars work. And Madalena does not get paid really enough for what she does, and I give her free teachings and things, and we give her some money, but we want to pay Madalena more. But yet we do not want to charge the big bucks high, manifest £444 to do nothing. So it's a very interesting time because there's this projection in a very materialist society that sometimes plays out as if you're somehow stupid or lesser because you're not in that manifesting superabundance, lots of money game. And I'm just wondering, I'll first ask Francesco if he's experienced any of that or how he's navigated around that through the years and anything you've seen about the value systems. Because I know at the Salisbury Centre, you've done a lot of work over the years, but a lot of it's not remunerated necessarily. And what's been your journey with that?
Yes, thank you. There's a lot to say about the topic. And similar to what you said, I resonate with the fact that in a lot of the work I've done over the years, I always felt somehow like, my income has always been kind of relatively low, very low compared to a lot of friends in Italy I would talk to, or the perception as well of what other friends will earn. What I find interesting is that as well in between friends and good friends, we never really talk about money, and there is something about that kind of subtle energy, which is very kind of like sometimes confusing and it kind of make you wonder where people are at. But in my experience, I spent a lot of my time after leaving Italy just volunteering in projects for like 3 years, where people were asking me, "How do you travel? Like, so were you finding works along the way?" And part of me was wondering and really thinking about what was I doing? Actually, yeah, I was just taking little opportunity which were coming down the way to volunteer somewhere or getting a bit of pay to do extra hours in a farm in Australia, or finding some sort of project that will pay me for a week and then finding a project that will just host me for free. So there was a lot of kind of the flow of synchronicity, which I believe a lot of people experience when they open up to the travel. I'm aware that Kate is on a travel right now, and there is so many things opening up. There is the kind of flux of life and synchronicity coming. And then since I've been in Edinburgh, and I've ended up working a lot with the idea of abundance in simple things. So, for instance, when I was the very few years, I was kind of a big campaigners for the kind of free cycling of like the dumpster diving movement, just seeing all the waste the supermarket would throw away and making videos about that and showcasing to my family, look how much food I found in the bins of supermarket that is perfectly good but thrown away because society is in such a crazy system. And I remember having very hard fight with my fathers because he perceived that what I was doing, it was like a low rank kind of things. It was something that only a beggar will be doing. While I was doing it from a place of, wow, we can live simply and there is so much waste. We need to actually face, social troubles and what's wrong in society to actually make sure that we can reverse it. And also, yeah, benefit from it and living with it. And then I guess throughout that journey, I also ended up setting up a co-op, which was based about taking stuff that students were throwing away at the end of the year. Everything's from wardrobes, from laptop, tons of food, tons of cutlery, tons of candle holder, beautiful, every possible things the student would have in the house. Everything's thrown away and I was supporting people and new students to get the things. But also in a way, I was never paid to do something of the project, but I always felt as well that there was so much waste that I was almost kind of like shown and I had available every single things I wanted. So there was this kind of weird thing in which I could have so much stuff. I was swimming in stuff, and there was the first years that I was accumulating things. But then I was like, I don't actually need these. Okay, so I kind of started simplifying. And the project, in a way, since it was driven from so much heart and so much passion, also so much joy and, in a way, an energy which wasn't about attachment to things, but about a focus toward a change which was meaningful for me and for the people I was seeing around me. It was actually a project that continued. Olivia was involved in it. It's actually still happening. It's like 10 years old project. It's called Swap and Reuse Hub, the Shrub Co-op. And I never got paid for it. Interestingly, when some funding came in, I applied for a position and to be okay, now I can get something back. And the spirit kind of kicked me and didn't give me that job. It was a big hurt for me. It was like, oh my God, I did so much free work and now I'm supposed to be recognized, but also I'm not getting the job. And so I went through a whole process. But looking back, it was just a process of healing some wound about having, being worth something after having done so much free work. That looking back, yeah, it does feel a process that had to take place, and I'm not feeling any resentment. I just feel that it gave more space to other things which actually need to be in my path, not having been recruited into that. And finally, I, the feeling of feeling a bit stupid with my sort of income. Um, I know that I have got lots of gifts. Everybody that is around me just see all the gifts I bring, all the things which is very hard to put value on, which is about caring for people in a space, seeing things and supporting people, bringing songs, bringing the fire, bringing awareness and an attitude which can be really enlivening and reassuring for people. However, when I am with the family of my Irish partner, which are very conventional, and all the family look at the partner of the young people based on their income, I really always felt, oh my God, I just, feel so small and feel like on my toes about like, oh my God, I just earn nothing compared to what they would imagine I earn, and feeling this kind of insecurity and this sort of contraction in me, which in a way is not my own contraction, because if I was in the space where I thrive, I would feel myself. However, where I'm in the space where I feel a lot of projection about, I don't understand what word you're talking about. Where is your income? What is your bank account? Then there is a lot of processing that I still feel arising because there is definitely insecurity arising all the time. But those are the instances which I would feel like, yeah, talking about in response to what you asked, Padma. Um, yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Cool, thank you. And yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a funny one, and this is it's so amazing when we realize how rich we are with all these things. Um, and I have had similar experiences sometimes when I've had suitcases go missing when I'm traveling. And this was in the period when I was doing a lot of earthwork. And then I find my like I've still got my little small suitcase, and and all my ceremonial stuff, my clothes and everything had gone. But there's one little suitcase. I found like all these little bits of like old coins or old pieces of copal and things. I felt so rich. And I can remember the years where we used to be like posting these mud patties to different countries that we'd made. And of course, the people in the post offices thought we were like mad. But this is this problem with this material paradigm about what is value that we're also with this massive inversion of. And this is something that we're really looking at. And I think it was Francesca or Kate, actually Kate was mentioning about, this is something we're seeing at the moment is people we have people who spend so many hours per week volunteering, who usually the people who feel very wealthy actually, and end up, I used to, my partner, when I was doing a lot of social projects, he was also working for Oxfam in the book part, and I just had rooms full of books, and then I had too much stuff, and then I had a hub in Manchester where we were recycling computers, and so we had everything because everybody would come and give us their stuff. And then actually it was the amount of clutter, it was the need for simplicity after that. And the path of being a nomad and realizing I can't carry things has really helped me to feel so abundant with just knowing I've got what I can carry, and realizing even that time when I had the small suitcase, wow, I've actually got enough for my next ceremony just with what's at the bottom of this little suitcase. And so it's kind of it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of people lose out because they never get to that point where they think, I do not have that last euro or that last pound. And I certainly know that any moment I've ever been in that moment, when I'm I work pretty economically and I can alchemize, but any time it's ever been that I'm down to that last pound or euro, and I'm like, oh, it's the baked beans on toast stage is coming, some money has come into my account, something has always happened. And that happened from student days. And of course, we'll talk about this more on a spiritual level later, but I find that the more and more I've got pushed, and sometimes when I'll do an extended period of volunteering, even in recent years, suddenly somebody will say, I've just put money into your bank account, and it's quite a lot of money. And just realizing that if we just keep surrendering, something will come in. And so I wanted to ask Madalena, have you had any experiences of being pushed to your last moment and feeling safe in where you are, or knowing what's next, or in some sort of money situation? Because you already come from Portugal, which is not like one of the more affluent countries of Europe, and you've had to come sometimes to countries like the UK with Portuguese kind of standard of, what is money. It's a bit like I've got friends from Kenya who've had to come to Europe and find it very, very hard to transfer because they're coming from a very different economic system. So just wondering what sort of challenges or initiations you might have had along the way.
Yeah, I mean, even just now, it's been one of those moments. But yeah, I've been many times where I was like, I had to go to all these other countries, especially in the UK, and then I was like, I had money, but I didn't have enough money for what it was needed for the whole time. So I would just have to trust that I needed to go there and needed to be there, and then that somehow that would be sorted out, and it would always be like we would do extra work and extra money would come in, or there would be some different arrangements that would come in, or someone would be like, "Oh, you don't have to pay," even though I was prepared to pay, or like all those things. And yeah, and I also I want to agree and concur with what Padma was saying, because many times I've been like, okay, I've got zero, but I had a house full of food, and even if it was not just mine, because it was a shared house, I knew that I could make it up in the next time, and the day after I would have money coming in. So yeah, there are all those things that it's very stressful because it's like, oh my God, I'm down to zero, and what do I do now? And really seeing that many times occurring after that, it actually that's just the flow of things, and then that's if we are constantly also moving and constantly a flow, then that will come in waves. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's not easy sometimes to go through that, but yeah, we do really see the resources and that we have and the people around us, and sometimes I've had to ask, and I've learned to ask and not to just like and to be like, okay, I don't have anything, and asking either friends or my parents because I can, not ever great amounts because I mean it hasn't been that expensive also things as they are now, but learning to ask and also learning to accept when sometimes people want to buy you dinner or to want to buy you something and want to give you gifts. And yeah, there's the that's yeah, there's that those different teachings that come from having nothing, and also not being how do you say in English, picky with certain things, because it's like, uh, oh, we've only got, I don't know, canned tuna. Do you mind eating canned tuna, or do you want to like fresh tuna? Oh, no, sorry, I don't eat canned stuff. And so all those things that have happened to learn to just, okay, so there's beans or lentils for the next week, and not being like, oh, but I don't really like to eat lentils that much, and just. Yeah, just being open, and actually that to learn to like different things that you wouldn't like if you didn't have to accept those things from other people. So yeah.
Thank you for that. That led me to remember a couple of times that I've had, and in the £1.25 an hour period, which was when I was doing a lot of these funded projects, but I would be the last person getting paid, but the person who was making everything happen and working these long, long, long hours. I was This was like around 2004, 2005, whatever. And I was really dismayed with the individualism in Europe. And I'd just been doing a doctorate where I was really talking about Japanese culture and different things. So collectivized cultures and cultures that are not so much in the cult of the ego were always interesting to me. And having come from things like the Free Party Network, the squat movement, these ways of just kind of blurring into a telepathic oneness and just weaving has always been appealing to me in some way. And so I was going kind of like mad doing these projects, and I was having to pay a lot of divas. Like they would get £25 an hour to show up and do these crap workshops. And I was there making everything happen, sitting up to 3 a.m. every night and dealing with nightmare people all day long, but knowing that it was part of my initiation. And meanwhile, also doing a lot of voluntary work at other institutions at the same time. And I had some maxed out credit cards as well, and I just felt something stirring inside me. It's like I'm going to go mad if I don't get to somewhere like South America soon. And I had no money, and I did have lots of like secondhand books because of the book boyfriend, but they were, but I didn't have the money to fly anywhere, and I couldn't go far at all. Um, but I said, I'm going to go mad. So I got another credit card and I just put a flight on it. And I didn't know how I was going to pay back any of this money. And everything was pretty stressy. I was starting to really not have a good time. And then an auntie of mine died. And literally, money from an inheritance went into my bank account the day that I went to Brazil. And that then marked me working with all these distributed networks and hackers. And then my journey to the Amazon and all the years of studying ayahuasca and working with many different tribes and always doing voluntary work as well in the communities before I'd go and drink medicine. And then I have a lot of friends who've had horror stories about their medicine journeys. But I always would do work first and pay into the communities and pay my way, not just come and teach me everything you know. And, this, there's a lot of this colonial attitude with medicine and shamanic lore and stuff like that. So so I've had these teachings where it was like down to like I am going to go mad if I don't get away, and then some grace coming through from the universe, and then that actually the inheritance paid off the credit cards, and then helped me to go and distribute my money around these tribes as I sat and worked with medicine, and then suddenly it was instilled with me to serve medicines. So there are these amazing things that come for us, and this brings to mind this story I actually heard recently, and I think I shared it yesterday, but it's really profoundly landed with me about this missing link that people have in their spiritual journey and their relationship to abundance.